Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Chem. Welcome to this explainer where we are going to absolutely demystify stoichiometry. Together, we'll learn exactly how chemists calculate the invisible, massively huge numbers of individual atoms, molecules, and ions that are just hanging out in everyday chemical substances.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We've got meet the chemical mole, Avogadro's massive number, the macro-micro bridge, counting atoms and molecules, and finally, calculating ions in solutions. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Meet the chemical mole. We need to start by addressing the ultimate classic dilemma for chemists. I mean, how do you actually count things that are literally too small to ever see?
To really give you a sense of the scale we're dealing with here, just think about a single, tiny drop of water. That one visible drop holds way more molecules than you could possibly count in an entire lifetime. It's mind-boggling. Because these molecules are just so unbelievably small, chemists have to use macroscopic mass as a really clever trick to estimate the counts. We absolutely need a standard unit of measurement to make this whole thing work.
The concept actually kicked off with the German chemist August Wilhelm Hofmann back around 1865. He's the one who coined the term molar, which actually comes from the Latin word moles, meaning a large mass. And he chose this intentionally to contrast with something else. He really wanted to distinguish it from the diminutive, submicroscopic, molecular mass. In other words, he just needed a totally practical word to describe a visible, workable mass of a substance right there on the laboratory bench.
Section 2. Avogadro's massive number. So now that we know where the word comes from, let's take a look at the absolute behemoth of a mathematical constant that defines it today.
Meet Avogadro's number. It's precisely 6.022140076 times 10 to the 23rd power. In chemistry, this specific value represents the exact number of entities in one standard mole. Whether we're talking about atoms or molecules or ions, a mole is always going to represent this specific giant quantity.
To try and wrap our heads around this mind-bending scale, let's just take an everyday object. If you took Avogadro's number of pennies and laid them side by side in a straight line, that line wouldn't just go around the globe once. No, it would wrap around the Earth 300 trillion times. I mean, it's a number so large it basically borders on incomprehensible.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that a mole is a fixed counting unit. By pure definition, it's the amount of a substance in grams that has the exact same number of particles as there are atoms in exactly 12 grams of pure carbon-12. Whether you're looking at atomic nitrogen, molecular water, or silver ions, one mole will always contain exactly Avogadro's number of those specific particles.
Section 3. The macro-micro bridge. How in the world do we put this colossal number to practical use in the lab without getting totally lost in the math?
Well, this concept is basically the heart of stoichiometry. The mole acts as a mathematical bridge. Think of it as the ultimate translator between your physical lab bench and the quantum realm. It seamlessly takes us back and forth between the macroscopic, real-world scale of grams, stuff we can easily weigh on a scale, over to the microscopic, quantum scale of individual atoms and formula units. You obviously can't weigh a single atom, but you can very easily weigh a mole of atoms.
To actually cross that bridge, you need the molar mass. And you can easily find this just by glancing at your periodic table. You simply add up the atomic masses of each element present in your compound. For example, water, H2O. It's got 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Hydrogen has a mass of about 1, oxygen is 16, which gives water a total molar mass of roughly 18 grams per mole. That 18 grams per mole, that becomes your ultimate conversion factor.
Section 4. Counting atoms and molecules. All right, let's level up a bit and see how this builds when we start calculating specific particles hiding inside a complex compound.
I've always loved this analogy. Think of a mole exactly like you'd think of a dozen. Just as specific dozens of everyday ingredients make a dozen delicious grilled cheese sandwiches, a compound's chemical formula gives you the exact ratio of atoms hiding inside every mole of that molecule. If you have 2 moles of hydrogen and 1 mole of oxygen, boom, you get 1 mole of water.
To walk through the math practically, you're pretty much always going to use these 2 foundational steps. Step 1, convert your given mass into moles. You do this by dividing your starting grams by the molar mass you just calculated from the periodic table. Easy enough, right? Then step 2, convert those moles into actual particles. You just take that mole value and multiply it by Avogadro's constant. Just like that, you've successfully crossed the bridge.
But you've got to pay super close attention here, because identifying your specific target particle is vital. This is exactly where a lot of people get tripped up. Let's say you have 1 mole of methane, which is CH4. You have exactly Avogadro's number of methane molecules. But what if I ask you for the number of hydrogen atoms? Well, because each single methane molecule contains 4 individual hydrogen atoms, you have to multiply your final answer by 4 to find the total hydrogen atoms. Makes sense, right?
Section 5. Calculating ions in solutions. For our final and definitely most complex challenge today, let's see what happens to our math when we take an ionic compound, like a salt, and actually dissolve it in water.
So, ionic compounds don't exist as independent, discrete molecules the way that water or methane do. Instead, they exist as what we call formula units, which are locked in a rigid crystal lattice. But when you drop them into water, they dissociate, meaning they break apart into multiple free-floating positive and negative ions.
It's honestly fascinating how different salts actually multiply the particle counts in your solution. Think about regular table salt, NaCl. 1 mole of NaCl dissociates into 1 mole of sodium and 1 mole of chloride, which yields a total of 2 moles of ions. But then consider something like aluminum sulfate. It literally explodes into 2 aluminum ions and 3 sulfate ions, yielding a staggering 5 moles of free-floating ions per single formula unit.
So to successfully calculate this in the lab, you just have to add one final step to your mathematical bridge. First, calculate the moles of the salt by dividing its mass by its molar mass. Second, multiply that mole value by Avogadro's number to get your total formula units. And third, you multiply that result by the specific number of ions per formula unit. So that means multiplying by 2 for NaCl, or multiplying by 5 for aluminum sulfate.
As you digest everything we've covered in this explainer, I really want you to look closely at the physical world around you. If a simple, tiny drop of water holds such an unimaginably massive universe of counted particles, all interacting in perfect mathematical ratios, what other incredible, invisible wonders are hiding right in front of you every single day? Keep calculating, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.